The QPR podcast is sponsored by Northwood Fresh Fruit, Flowers and Plants. Based outside Northwood train station, they'll supply everything you need in the way of fruit, flowers and plants daily. And if you're passing them at Northwood train station, pop in and say hello, because Kev, who runs it's a QPR fan. Tell him the QPR podcast sent you.
QPR, QPR, Christmas Rangers are on the up and up. QPR, QPR, now we're heading for European Cup.
Hello there, I'm Chris Charles. Breaking news on the way here, I received a text to say both Finney and Fraser have had to pull out of tonight's podcast. I have to say there was a slightly different F word that popped into my head. I'm receiving that news thinking I might be flying solo, but thankfully I've been bailed out by two QPR stalwarts in Ash Rose and Morris May. So between the three of us, we're going to dissect Saturday's game, look ahead to the upcoming games, and basically try and fill the next half an hour or so with whatever we can.
We'll be fine.
Now, before we get down to the nitty-gritty, I've got a sponsor's message to read out. Thanks to Northwood Fresh Fruit, Flowers and Plants, outside Northwood train station, and run by Kevin, a QPR diehard. So thank you, Kevin, for sponsoring tonight's show. OK, right. Well, first of all, I suppose the only place to start is Saturday's game. Ash, we'll start with you. Any thoughts?
Well, 3 points was nice.
Yeah.
That's a good start.
Yeah.
I know we've been a little bit, with Charlie's injury and he wasn't fit to start, but I'm not a fan of I don't even like calling it the false nine, because I don't think we can quite play the false nine.
Not quite Barcelona.
Exactly. And Matt Phillips, for all what he's good at, he's not a striker. His finishing, especially from inside the box, is not his best attribute. So when the team sheet came out, I was a little bit like, okay, this is going to be different, because we played very well against Middlesbrough with that formation, but that was a defensive formation. I would like to have seen us play more attacking. I expected Jet to maybe start if Austin wasn't fit, and I think it showed that first half. I think we were a better team throughout, but until Warnock made the changes and Charlie came on, moved Matt to the right, we looked much more of a bigger threat. I think the second half, that was the best we've played for quite a few weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say about Jet, and I assume that he was not being picked because Warnock didn't fancy him, but somebody else said to me that he was injured. So whether that's true, I don't know. And the thing is, I haven't heard anything official about that. So you can't really go into one and say why didn't he pick him if he was injured. But have you heard anything?
No, I haven't. I think you're right. I think it's a case of Warnock going in there, and because before Warnock came in, he was on that little run, wasn't he? He scored, the winner against Bolton, and he got two that game, didn't he? And he was the player in form. And then we had the international break, and maybe that upset his form. But for some reason, Warnock's come in and not decided to start him or Poulter. We haven't seen a lot of Poulter ourselves, really, as a team. We don't really know. You hear the stories that come out that he's probably not the player we all thought he might be. He more be Mark Nygaard, I think he's been linked to. But I don't. Yeah, I think it's like you say, somewhat a preference. And it probably won't matter now, because if Charlie's hopefully should be able to fit at least to start the game on Thursday, and then we'll see. But then he may revert back to the defensive again. It's a strange one, because you'd want to play, especially at home, with a recognised striker. It's bad enough when I play one up front. To play Matt Phillips on his own in this, fangled false nine, it's not for me.
Well, I think it's fair to say that they're probably not both injured. Poulter has. What you can't accuse Poulter of is lacking passion, judging by the tweet when he was left out, and certainly he seems convinced about his ability to play. I'm just not sure whether anyone else is. Now, Morris, I'm going to bring you in. You were at the game on Saturday. What's your observations?
Well, my thoughts of games at the moment is every game I go to, I'm disappointed with the team sheet. It knocks me every time. I'm not a football expert in the slightest, but I thought that the first half we played reasonably well, but that is if Leeds were absolutely awful.
Yeah,
they're one of the worst sides. I managed to dodge the Preston game. I didn't want to go to Warner's comeback.
They're nearly as bad as Bolton, and Bolton were 2-0 up in 15
You didn't want to go
minutes.
to his comeback game. Why?
I didn't want to, because I felt I felt that Warnock had somehow manufactured his appointment, and I had great hopes at the beginning of the season that I didn't really care what happened this season, as long as we were trying to develop youth for the following year. So I'm sort of a happy clapper for Chris Ramsey. Now, I know that he wasn't cut out to be a manager, but I'm disappointed that he's left the club.
Yeah, well, we've sort of...
Or if he has, I'm not even sure.
Yeah, no one knows where Chris Ramsey is at the moment.
Yeah.
Someone should start a Twitter campaign.
Yeah. Maybe he's out on the lash with Fraser tonight.
Yeah, that's where he really is. Yeah. Poor Finney.
So I mean, we've obviously talked about this at length in the past, but no, I agree with you. I mean, the thing is, again, this has often been said, but the when Ramsey at the start of the season, all the decks have been cleared. It was just a case of promote the youth, steady the ship. We'll get a nice mid-table finish, and then we'll push on next year. And obviously, the goalposts were moved, and he didn't really move with them.
Were for that, which made it even more difficult for anyone that comes in. And we brought in what we might regard as raw talent.
Yeah.
I mean, and all of the players that we brought in, I was really happy with all the signings over the summer. I mean, Poulter, okay, we haven't seen a lot of him, but I saw quite a lot of him in pre-season and everything else like that. And he just looks like he's a lumbering Jamie Mackey.
Yeah.
He puts in the effort. He's not terribly good on
but
the ball.
we kind of get cult hero-ish with these type of players. I mean, I used to love Rob Steiner. He's a player I used to. I must have mystic memories of him not being that good. But I thought he was brilliant. But he's not been given a chance, Poulter, and he could be the next Rob Steiner. And that's it. What more would you want?
I think the worst thing was going up away to Birmingham and listening to the response that was given to Poulter when he came on. I mean, that was just quite frankly disgusting. And I suppose the one thing about Warnock is it has improved the atmosphere of the crowd, because I was finding it really uncomfortable to go to games because, I mean, I don't expect... I mean, we're QPR. I mean, how many QPR fans expect to win every week?
Yeah.
And
especially
if they're deluded.
If we were all expecting, which we probably all were at the beginning of the season, to be mid-table, I think the goalposts were changed in some fans' minds as well as the board, but the atmosphere changed so quickly.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it was... I mean, we were just talking about that earlier. In the first game of the season we went to at Charlton, and again, I know this is going over old ground, but, halfway through, Charlie Austin was getting pelters,
Yeah.
I mean, the bloke clearly wasn't fit, and
never ever came out and said he wanted to go, despite the fact that he had every right to, being an 18-goal Premier League striker at the time.
And it was just, all these, football experts around me giving their... And, of course it wasn't the whole crowd, far from it. It was a minority. But, it was a significant enough minority to be heard. And, I get you. And the same with...
I think also the other thing is, I mean, say, for instance, everyone was assuming that when Warnock came in, that would be the end of Carl Henry. But actually, Neil Warnock has seen a role for Carl Henry. And I mean, there's a player who gives 100%.
Yeah.
He's not very good, but...
There was no need to make him the scapegoat.
That's all you ever ask for players.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had plenty of players over the years that have never given any effort whatsoever, and that's even more disappointing.
Yeah, cough, Jose Bazingwa.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And with him, the boos and the calls for to take him off and all the rest of it on that game when he eventually was taken off. I mean, there wasn't too many people disagreeing with that, to be honest.
No.
But okay, Henry, he hasn't. He will put in the effort, but I think it's fair to say that he hadn't had the best run of games, and it was a bit of a surprise that Ramsey hadn't dropped him for at least a couple of games. But equally, there's no reason why he should get that sort of abuse.
I think the one major positive from Saturday and at Middlesbrough as well is the form of Ali Faurlin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there was no surprise that when Warnock came back that he was going to be back at the fulcrum of the team, and rightfully so, because if Ali's fit and firing, then we've still got a hell of a player on our hands, and if we can keep him fit and get him to a 90-minute footballer rather than the 70-75 minute we're getting in a minute, which understandably with 3 cruciate ligaments, it's great to see him because he's a hell of a player, especially this level, and Charlie will thrive on it. Matt Phillips, I think, will thrive on his vision as well, and I think hopefully...
Well, he's a classic, isn't he? I mean, he's not the quickest, but they say the first 10 yards is in his head or whatever, and I agree, he was phenomenal. I'd say he's probably man of the match on
and his
Saturday.
best game for a very long time,
and he lasted the full 90, and Sandro did as well,
which is absolutely amazing.
I was amazed to see that it's been tweeted or commented on that he got a standing ovation when he went into the dressing room. Warnock insisted that everyone gave him a round of applause. He played well, but
I think the thing with Sandro as well.
I think it was more the fact that he lasted the 90.
Yeah, I think but he's such a character, Sandro, having spoken to him in the past. I think he's such well loved. He was at Spurs at the time when I did some stuff with him, and he's a massive character, a really funny guy, and I think he's probably well loved in the dressing room, because I can imagine that sort of crossing over to QPR as well. So I think, his injury record is ridiculous. So I think that was probably a combination of both, that to get him through 90 minutes, and just because he's probably quite well liked down there. And if we can get Faurlin and Sandro as that too for the rest of the season, that's better than probably any team in the league can offer.
I should just point out the fact you mentioned you've spoken to him a bit. Ash, for anybody who doesn't know, is the editor of Kick magazine, and also you do a podcast, which how we got you on, because you were the podcast before this one, which is
it's on 90s football, so completely. It's kind of my Roy Wegley-esque celebration. I think, as I said pre-pod, my friends play Wegley bingo, how many times I can mention him. But yeah, it's a podcast on 90s football, so pure nostalgia. So if you're into your 90s football...
And where can we find it?
At AK90s on Twitter, and if you type Alive and Kick into iTunes, all the episodes, we've done 15 episodes now, and we've spoke to some great guests on the phone, some likes of Brian Dean, Roy Evans, Paul Walsh, loads of great 90s faces as well, and spoken to lots of different subjects as well. Kits, everything you can imagine in the 90s. So thank you for that.
Any Rangers on yet?
Kevin Gallen's in the process of confirming which date.
Okay, so I mean,
Andy Sinton as well is
we'll
coming.
We'll come back to the present day in a minute,
yeah.
But I mean, I'm conscious of the fact as anything else, we've got to talk about lots of different things tonight, because we also haven't got a guest, because we did try. We haven't got a guest tonight either. So yeah, 90s. So what's your favourite QPR memory of the night? Well, it's got to be the 93, isn't it?
I mean, you think, if you're talking matches, firstly, I think there's only one game that ever comes to mind, and it's Old Trafford New Year's Day, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think, not many of teams go to Old Trafford then, now, or ever, and do what we did to Manchester United that day. I think until City did the 6-0 a few seasons ago, that was the biggest result, worst defeat that Maynard.
It was more important than that, because it was the first ever New Year's Day game live.
It was live TV, with Elton Wellesby presenting, if anyone remembers.
Yeah.
Elton Wellesby on the match when it was a random ITV live show. Yeah, that would be my game. I think that was the season before we finished 5th.
It was also my girlfriend at the time's 17th birthday, I think, and I'd been invited around to... I wasn't, like the Sex Pistols free gig, there's about, 25,000 people who say they were in the away end that day, but I was
at my nan's watching it on TV.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I was round at their house, and he was a massive Man United fan, so he was like, he cooked all this pheasant, all this sort of nice stuff, and was just jibing me from the minute I got there, about how many United were going to score and blah blah blah. By the time we were, I think we were 2 up inside 10 minutes, weren't we?
Yeah. And,
Dennis Bailey's hat. He'd retired to the kitchen with his towel between.
I mean, it was tough for me. I was working abroad at the time, and that was when there wasn't any internet or anything else like that. And I had a friend who rang up. He was a Grimsby fan, rang up to get results from England, and he came back and said, "Oh yeah, 4-1. Oh yeah, well, I mean." That's not too bad a result for QPR at Old Trafford. But when he then confirmed it, you had to wait 2 days for the paper to come out and actually confirm that this freak
not even
result,
teletext.
Yeah, nothing, absolutely nothing. And he said, "Oh yeah, some guy called Dennis Bailey scored a hat trick." Who? Never heard of it. It's just one of those.
It was his moment in the sun. Yeah. So I think that. I mean, as I said, player wise, my first big hero as a QPR fan was Roy Wegley.
Yeah.
He was. I think because, back in the early 90s, as we've discussed on the pod, so that's the last cheap plug I'll do, there wasn't many foreign players around, not like ridiculously there is nowadays, and he had that long hair, he was American, South African stroke American, and that was really different, and that goal against Leeds where he went round, I think it's more players in my head than it actually was when you watch it, but it was just, he had so much skill, he was just, so he was my first sort of 90s hero.
Cool. Okay, we're going to come back to the present day, and we'll come back to Saturday, because there's a few talking points out there. I mean, not least, it was quite a weird starting lineup. Like we've already touched on the false line. There's sort of a couple of left backs in there, 3 centre backs, I think. It all looked rather strange. It was definitely a game of 2 halves. I mean, I don't think we were ever in any danger of losing the game. But the first half, we didn't.
Well, I mean, apart from when it got completely fumbled by Green, and how did he not score? I don't understand that. It went on forever.
Yeah, it was you were just waiting and waiting. The angle was getting tighter and tighter, and I think Nedum was getting closer and closer. But I was still waiting for the net to bulge. So somehow they managed to mess that one up, which we kind of got out of jail there.
But generally, I mean,
other than that though,
it wasn't.
They had nothing.
I mean, the only complaint, if there was a complaint, second half, is that we didn't score anymore, because I mean, it was sort of fill your boots time, wasn't it, in a way?
There was that shot late on that was in the box that Charlie laid off. Was that Phillips? I think he should have buried that, or was it Lenogo? I can't remember.
It had a fantastic shot.
Yeah, there was a few shots.
I mean,
I thought that was just going to be one of the goals.
Danny Shittu-esque, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
But I was going to say, one of the real surprising things in that lineup was Petrasso starting.
Yeah, I
didn't really see that coming.
It's good. I mean, we've all, like you guys have discussed on the pod before, you know, we all expected to see more of these guys this season. I know that if we keep saying the goalposts were moved. So it's nice to see a guy like Petrasso come on and get a start. But it was really kind of out of nowhere. I know it just, and I think he played okay for kind of being thrown in to somewhat at the deep end, but it's good to see. You know, I really was disappointed we loaned out Faurlin at the beginning of the season because I thought this was the season he could kind of establish himself.
But then Furlong's back, so
who knows?
And it's apparently he is back, but I don't know.
He'll probably be loaned out
somebody
again,
bumped
though,
into
yeah.
him just outside the ground. But I mean, the thing about Petrasso more than anything else is that's just not what you expect from Warnock. Warnock is someone who likes established players, that he knows exactly what he's going to get from them, and when you looked at our bench, it was so strong, and you think, what's he throwing, a kid out there for? But
it makes you wonder where Warnock thinks, how long, because only Warnock and the board know how long he's going to be there, and what does that suggest by throwing in, like, does he want to look at this guy and see how much he can use him, or was it these showing off a squad and the youngsters? It was a really odd move. It's great for the club to produce youngsters and get them in the team, as we've been crying out for. But yeah, it was a name that kind of stood out when you looked at that team. He was kind of like, okay.
Did you not think from Warnock's post-match interview that actually he was sounding pretty bullish, as if he'd actually warmed the seat and now was firmly in it? I got the impression.
I don't buy Warnock not wanting the job for 1 second, really.
No, I don't either.
Well, which job does he want? I mean, that's what we talked about before. Does he want the manager's job? Or, I mean, the thing was, I sort of bought into the theory that he was, he's maybe on after Sir Les's job, and that would suit him down to the ground, get his feet under the table, but I think, again, this is all conjecture, and it's, been based, like you said on that interview the other night. I think he's starting to get the bug again, and before too long he'll be back in his shorts on the touchline.
Please no.
No, it's no need for that.
The thing is, we sort of hear also there's a couple of the local sort of journalists who suggested that there'll be an appointment this Thursday, which seems a bit strange given that's the day that we actually play Reading.
Yeah.
But,
well, it is on form. I mean, Warnock was, presented 2 hours before the Birmingham match, so they'd throw everyone in the pubs.
Well, that's true. But then, I mean, I did say, and I did say when Ramsey got sacked, rightly or wrongly, and when Warnock came back in, which was no great surprise to anybody, to be honest, that maybe just for a bit of stability for once, give it to Warnock till the end of the season, see where we are, and then start again. And I don't know, the sort of mood I got around me where I sit in the lower loft was a lot of people were saying the same thing now. I mean, basically, people don't know where they are. We don't know what plan we're on. We don't know what planet we're on.
I think we all change, don't we, game by game?
Yeah.
I think with Neil, I suspect this is with the club and with the fans. He's so infectious. Yeah. In terms of, I'm sure on the training ground, it's been not it was a bad atmosphere under Ramsey. I'm sure it wasn't, but he has that kind of man management style that G's players up, and probably another reason why Sandro was getting that standing ovation. He brings that atmosphere, which surely is giving him the bug again, and he probably thinks he has unfinished business.
I got the feeling on Saturday that the players were playing for Warnock. Yeah, I really got that feeling, and that raises my suspicion that somewhere behind behind whatever the club puts out, that the nod has been given to Warnock. Look, we're going to stick with him just for the time being. We can't get the manager that we want. We've been through the process, and this is going to do.
Manager.
Yeah, and this is going to do for now.
I mean, there were 3 names in the frame who've been, if you believe what you read in the Daily Star,
or on the non-league paper.
Okay, and Dean Smith was one of them. Who's now the Brentford manager. Yeah. So
I think that would have been way too left field for QPR.
Yeah. So Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank has seemed to have been the favourite all along. I know. A few people got reservations. You said you didn't want us to ruin his
no, I don't really want a young manager like that to come to QPR and have his career ruined. We will at the moment, because the club is not stable. We have everything that we were talking about in the summer of what the club wants to do is to build youth, build the training ground, build a future, a stable club, and the appointment of Lee Hughes was the best appointment as far as I was concerned over the summer. I really like him. But at the moment, you need a manager who's either thick-skinned like Warnock, or possibly Pearson, but I think Pearson would be an absolute nightmare for the club.
I know there's a lot of Pearson fans, but I just think, he would be far too toxic just to dump into the middle of our club. I could not see that ending well at all.
No, it's not a good mix, and I agree on Jimmy Hasselbank. It's not the sort of manager. I think he would come here and not get what he's expecting, and it soon turns, which is not good for him, not good for us. He's at Burton, such a great little club, well run. They've done well with Paul Finney. Solidate did well there. Gary Rowett did well there. And look at him now at Birmingham.
And they've got the St George's facilities to use for training.
Exactly. I just don't see. Not like Harlington. I just don't see Hasselbank. And as soon as he loses 5 games, you'll get the minority in the crowd bringing up the Chelsea link, which is just ridiculous. We had that with Faurlin.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it, but okay, let's say that Warnock isn't going to be the man. There is going to be a new
don't ask that question.
Thursday or whatever. Okay. I mean, if it's not I personally, of the names that have been mentioned, I think maybe Hasselbank is not such a bad idea. But who would you...
Well, I mean...
We've already ruled out Pearson between...
I mean, the person I'm thinking of is actually in a job, which is Jacket. So, I mean, to me... I think that's...
Pep Guardiola.
He wants to leave Bayern, so the rumour mill goes.
I mean, for me, he's someone who would actually come in and actually just stabilise the club. I'm not convinced that he's someone that can take clubs further than the Championship, but what we desperately need at the moment is stability.
Yeah.
But, I mean, one of the things with Warnock, I mean, the games haven't been spectacular, but he has got the club stable, and he's actually also... presenting he's delivering the results, even if 0-0 against Preston is not. It's just worst game. Thank God I didn't go. I'm just so glad I dodged that.
Yeah. Okay. Well done. Thanks for that straight answer there. Right. Okay. Come on, Ash.
None of the names jump out to me. Jimmy Floyd, I have my concerns. Pearson, as we said. Chris Powell's another one that's been linked. Who I think is a very decent manager, but I don't know if. I don't want to do him disservice to say we're better than that, but he's at a level where he did quite well with Charlton, didn't really quite well with Huddersfield. Is he going to do anything? If promotion is the aim, Chris Powell isn't the answer. I don't think.
Okay.
If that's what the board are looking at this season, we don't know, because it may have changed in the 30 minutes we've been sitting here. I don't know. So I slump in my chair and think the only thing we can do at the moment is just leave it with Warnock to the end of the season and see where we are then.
I'm sort of on that sort of, I mean, again, it depends whether Warnock wants it. Like I said, the signs are that maybe he does. But and it's also that thing about all of a sudden, we were talking about this. The last few weeks has just been a write-off, really, one way and another. But now we win on Saturday, and suddenly I'm starting to look up the table again. We're 5 points off the playoffs, which is to be honest, I don't know where I'm at this season. I'm starting off, I'm in the summer thinking, as you are, thinking, right, consolidation, mid-table, let's do this thing, let's do it properly. Then... I mean, I was the same as probably a lot of fans. I know a lot of people didn't say that, but when we did keep, the big 4, 5, whatever, I did suddenly think, well, hang on a minute.
You can't help not. Look at the squad on the paper.
Absolutely.
And then you get Phillips tweeting, when Charlie stays, # promotion.
Yeah.
You get Fernandez, doing his usual thing, and
But I think with the players, though, surely at any season, it doesn't matter how bad. I mean, even if you're Bolton at the beginning of the season, you're all thinking this is going to be the one.
Yeah.
And I think for players like Phillips and Austin, they're all thinking, if we're going to stay at the club, we're good enough for that. We can carry this team. We can deliver.
Which is good. I mean, if they're saying,
is what we want as well.
If they're saying # mid-table, then
that'd be the worst hashtag ever, wouldn't it? But it must in January as well. What do we think will happen in January? Does the new manager come in expecting that Charlie and Matt, and I don't think Leroy Phil will get a club June because of his medical, but does he come in thinking they're going to be sold? Will he have money? I mean, it's quite funny. You talk about moving the goalposts. I've just started the new Football Manager game, and the squad is so big to start with. I had to loan so many players out because they were getting unhappy. But your Ben Gladwins of this world, who when we started the season was going to be one of the players we thought would be featuring quite a lot, but whereas the guys have stayed. So it depends in January what a new manager is going to be promised. Is Neil Warnock going to be promised funds if he's there?
But then again, it's Les's job. It's not actually the manager's. And again, this is part of the problem that Chris Ramsey had. Players were recruited to do this long-term building. Then the goalposts were changed because we didn't manage to get rid of the players, whichever way you look at it. The players didn't leave, and you've now got a fantastic squad, delivered promotion, and it's like, well, that's not exactly what I was promised. I was asked to do. I'll try my best.
Well, there's another sticking point. I mean, in January, is Neil Warnock going to be told what players he's having from Les Furley?
Yeah, who we're already hearing are not
No.
the best of friends.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's just rumour mill nonsense or.
Again, I don't know whether that's true.
But Les has been
It's
quite
a typical
quiet.
QPR's power struggle,
Yeah.
isn't it? We just don't do it easy. We've got to do it hard.
I think
Yeah.
Les has been quite quiet in the last sort of couple of weeks as well, which he's kind of faded into a background, which is a bit strange as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen other people as well saying he's got, I think, well, let's give him a chance, But I think the problem is maybe I'm just getting old, but the modern day football thing is just everyone wants some sort of success yesterday.
Yeah, it's just
and if it
short-term,
doesn't
isn't it?
happen, then people throw their toys out. But I just wanted, before we leave this subject, I wanted to Hasselbank has denied a couple of times that he's been approached by QPR, and this was his quote: "There's been no approach from QPR. It's not relevant. Yesterday I cooked Sunday dinner for my family. We had chicken, lamb, and rice. It was very nice."
But hasn't he followed Tony Fernandes on Twitter? Didn't I read?
Oh, did he? Yeah, okay.
I don't read. I don't know who controls.
And Fernandes followed him back. But I mean,
Is that just to organise a game of FIFA before he signs, though, like he did with Loic
But
Remy?
one thing struck me about that Sunday dinner: chicken and lamb. I mean,
that's a big that's a big deal. They do call him the Fat Eddie Murphy, don't they? So the song goes anyway.
Yeah. Well, okay. Now, Charlie Austin, we just sort of touched on him there. Obviously, I mean, I think. Okay, there was a few people saying, Cherry turned the game, somebody turned the game. But at the end of the day, Austin got his head on the ball when he came on, a few minutes after he came on, his first touch, I think.
Yeah.
Great to have him back. In January, should we sell him or not?
All these questions are so hard.
The answer is simple. We should sell him.
Okay.
Because I don't think unless we are really pushing for automatic towards the end of the season, he is going to be thinking about his next move as you get towards the next end of the season and getting injured and everything else like that. I mean, I heard the person I was sitting next to on Saturday was suggesting that he wasn't even starting because he'd already been sold and he'll only be brought on when a game is failing. And it's thinking, theories and theories.
Bloke down the pub said.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think he's out of contract in the summer. I think that's the key factor, isn't it? That the club don't want to lose him on a free. It might depend where we are. I'd like to think, I know this is forward planning, it doesn't really go hand in hand with QPR, that if we did sell him for, because what would we get for him now? Out of contract, 10 mil max, maybe not even that.
I would have thought we might get 5 or 6.
Yeah, they must have we will need a replacement lined up, because at the moment we don't have one. Emmanuel Thomas had that little spell earlier in the season. Warnock doesn't even fancy him. He's never been an out-and-out striker. Poulter we've discussed. Greece Rego Cox is not ready. So if we do sell Charlie, and I probably only because he's out of contract, I think we probably will. And if we get them money, there's a lot of teams out there who need strikers right now in the Premier League. You look at the Newcastles, Palace, West Brom.
Yeah, but he won't go to the Newcastles.
It'd be mental to go there.
No, he absolutely won't. I mean, Bianca won't want him going there for a start.
It's
going to be a southern club, or it's going to be a very big club if he's going to go to.
The chat was pre-season. He'd been made an offer at Leicester and turned it down because they weren't, he didn't want to be struggling.
Well, if he wants to win the league, he might head over to Filbert Street and Jamie Vardy up front. But I think we.
But is it going to be is it going to be QPR's choice in a way whether he goes? I mean, if he wants to run down his contract, is he not entitled to do that?
If he wants to, I don't see him Charlie doesn't come across the kind of guy who's going to stamp his feet and want to move in January. And then he has the pick of the bunch in the summer. You imagine where more clubs would be interested. He'll have the clubs coming up as well. That option, so I imagine,
and he'll probably get a signing on fee as well. Exactly. Which I mean, I don't think anyone would deny him that, because he's been a great servant for us. And
Bournemouth is one to watch, I think, because they're local and they've got Callum Wilson out for the season. They've still got a bit of money. It's whether Charlie thinks he's going to go there and end up relegated again. It depends where the Premier League is as tight as we've ever seen it. So I do think we'll sell him. It'll be disappointing because I think in the short space he's been there, I think he's built up a real rapport with the club and as someone.
No, absolutely, and he's.
I mean, talking of relegation threatened clubs, I mean, perhaps Chelsea come in for him.
But what I mean, I mean, the thing is, but he might. I mean, the signs were. I mean, when he was asked about it, even into the season, he said, "No, I'm not going. I'm staying till the end of the season," and I wouldn't be surprised to see that scenario. And I think, if it's all ifs, buts, and probably if we win our next, if we get a decent points haul out of our next 5 games and suddenly we're in the playoffs come January, I mean, is it not more sensible to keep him and just go for the push?
But realistically, look at what we've got coming up. The next 3 games. You've got Brighton and Burnley at home.
And
we've got
Reading away next.
2 of those are on TV.
Reading away.
And then we've got Christmas. We've got Christmas, which is where you lose all your presents. It's not a good time of year for
Well,
kids.
apparently Reading fans were singing you should have gone to the Fulham to Steve Clark when they were losing the other day. Some mate of mine is a Reading fan. And they're not in the best shape. I think they've lost their last couple. But it's on the telly, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think we should just abstain from TV
Yeah, we
games.
should just step out of Sky Sports.
Just give them the money back and just say, look,
There's 3 points. We'll take it 3-0.
We're so terrible. It's like that classic Ian Holloway quote he used to say, like, does it make a difference? And then they'll do their hair. But it's going back that far that we've always had a problem with being on live TV, and it's just. Oh, it's so disappointing.
But I mean, I think the real difficulty is that the players are aware of it. I mean, when they were interviewing Charlie early in the season about, I can't remember, it must have been before the Fulham game, and Ian Taylor was not Ian Taylor, Morrissey, what's he called?
Paul
Morrissey was saying, we've got this terrible record on TV, and he said, well, just shut up,
don't make
don't
a
rub
thing
it in.
of it,
He said, well, then there's also the London derbies. Yeah, well, don't rub it in. Don't be so negative, But
the thing is, when you've seen so many games like that on the telly and sat through them or been at them, you just think. I mean, obviously there was one game on the telly which we didn't do too bad. That was in May a couple of years back. But and the aforementioned Man United game.
Absolutely.
Maybe we used all our luck up in that Man United game.
Yeah, maybe we did.
Well, that and Wembley definitely. Yeah.
Why is it on a Thursday as well? I tried to find this out. There's a couple of games over the December period that they've got on. It's a really random night.
No, I think it's because the last few Reading games on TV have been so exciting. They want to just lower down the tone a bit.
Maybe it's late night shopping in Reading on a Friday.
Maybe it is. Yeah.
I've been stuck. I got stuck in. Oh God! Well, this is very quickly. I went to a mate's house in the same bloke actually in Reading. Yeah, I don't know that many people in Reading, and left and got the train back to London about 12:30 or something like that. The next thing I knew, I was back in Reading. It was 4:00 in the morning, and I had to walk round there for 3 hours before the train arrived, and it wasn't very pleasant.
I have been thrown off that station, the station seats there so many times. There in Portsmouth, they're just nightmares. Just get on that train to get to Richmond or somewhere. And,
yeah, it's not great. Okay, before we come to the R's end, I just wanted to a couple of points. First of all, under Warnock, you said the players seem to be playing for him. I mean, that was one thing I did notice. Aside from Faurlin and Sandro, both lasted 90 minutes, there seemed to be a lot of energy in the team that we maybe haven't seen in recent weeks.
Well, I didn't think anyone had a bad game, and I thought everyone was really putting in a lot of effort. I mean,
even Perch.
It's probably easily his best game in the QPR shirt.
If you look, I mean, there were a few boo boys playing that day, and there were no boos from our block. If you're not getting boos from our block, things are going well. But you had Junior, you had Perch, you had Carl Henry come on. Those players normally get dog's end abuse. I thought it was a good team performance, and as I say, it should have been more.
And can Faurlin take all our corners from now on?
I hope so.
Well, it's been a long time since we've been good at set pieces, isn't it? So it would be nice. Although if any other team wants to give Charlie that much space,
well, that's true.
A corner, please go ahead.
But I did turn to the bloke next to me and say, we never score from corners.
We don't. I usually just turn away at the point and go, yeah, corner.
Yeah.
And free kicks. When was the last time we had a decent free kick taker, even to shoot at free kicks?
Yeah. And the last point I was going to mention was Petrasso, who I didn't know was born in Canada, Junior Hoylett. When was the last time QPR started a game with two Canadian-born players? Ash.
Having done a cheap plug number 2, QPR Marcellini, but no, that's the only time. Yeah, okay. I think they're the only two Canadian. I can't.
Bertram. Well, I know.
Mark,
well, he wasn't born there.
Technically,
was he?
yeah. I think Canadian-born players. Yeah, I can't think of many teams that have had two Canadian-born in England anyway on the pitch. So. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Canada for 2018 World Cup. Go on.
There you go, fact fans. Okay, we've come to the R's end of the show. Ash, I'll start with you.
I would like to mention a signing that I didn't really think much of in the summer, but I think is now one of our key players at the back in Grant Hall, who I think has been absolutely fantastic. Probably up and I think so far, other than Charlie, and take into account his injury, I think he's been probably our player of the season, and it's great to see that kind of find, because it's rare it happens now. Someone who's come, especially at QPR, we haven't bought him in big money. We've had the Anton Ferdinands, the Rio Ferdinands in that position, and this guy's come on a free from Tottenham. Not many people had heard of him, and he's done fantastically. And I hope we stick to Anura and Hall in the middle, because I think they could be a brilliant sort of Shitu Carlisle-esque partnership. That's the second time I mentioned Danny Shitty tonight on the pod. Going forward. So that would be.
We're going to get done by iTunes for swearing at this.
Yeah, Danny Shitty.
Yeah. Just before you go, actually, can you just talk me through your Kick Magazine Goal of the Season award?
They weren't, but I gave it to Matt Phillips, and I don't think that was biased.
No, but obviously I don't.
No, of course it was. I mean, I say argument in the office. There is just only me and a designer, but yeah, and he's a Man United fan, so you can imagine the argument. But yeah, I mean, there was a few in there. Although we were terrible in the Premier last season, we scored a few good goals.
We got 3 in the top 20, didn't
Zamora's
we? Bobby
against
Zamora,
West Brom, and Charlie Austin's Southampton was in the top 20 as well. But yeah, Matt, I mean, in all honesty, if that scored by a non-keeper, that was some hell of a... Because that would just hit Thunderbolt. Because we lost 3-1, people kind of forgot about it. So
I mean, these goals from the halfway line, they're 10 a penny these days, aren't they?
Exactly. It's not Trevor Sinclair, is it? Let's be honest.
Yeah. And, okay... Morris.
Not particularly looking forward to the next 3 matches.
Okay.
Before the Leeds match, I felt that if we could get 4 points out of the next 4, that was about as much as we could hope for. And I still feel that. I think that we're going to really struggle. There's 2 TV games. And I think though after the weekend I suddenly realised we're looking up, and if we win on Thursday, we're 2 points away from the playoffs. But I just think in 3 games' time we're going to be looking down again, going into a Christmas period, which isn't traditionally not good for us. It just worries me a little bit,
because they're top of the league. I think it's a very close league.
Well, doesn't he remind you of that Watford game when we were romping it away with and then with Warnock we got into that thing of starting to get some draws and the occasional win, and then we got totally stunned, and I'm just fingers crossed.
We're never that team.
Rubbish. We are going to stun Brent.
We've never been that
Brighton,
team, have we? So that'd be not. I just don't. I mean, all due respect to Brighton, they've done very well. It's just such a close league, and I don't think they're the best team in the league. And I'd like to see someone beat them and then see how good they, how well they could bounce back ability, I suppose they used to call it. And it'd be nice for us, for a change, to be the ones that cause that. But yeah, I agree with you. The next 3 games are tough.
Yeah.
Reading away is never fun unless you've got Wayne Routledge in your team.
And you've got Burnley coming with Joe Barton. And
fun. Don't boo him. There's the answer.
You encourage. If you boo him, you'll make him have the game of his life.
I was in the Millwall end for the QPR Millwall game the season we were lost in the Championship, and I'd watched the abuse that they gave Joey Barton, and I was laughing because he had a great game, because he completely feeds off it. You give him nothing, you ignore him, he'll go missing.
Yeah. I mean, Andy Cole Burnley, that's all I'll say.
Yeah, perfect example.
It's probably his last hat-trick in English football. Thank you very much.
Nice Burnley segue there as well.
Yeah, of course. Okay, right, well, my R's end, there's a couple. First of all, on Saturday I went to the game, and I was sort of, basically my good lady was away, so I ended up having to pay 45 quid for a babysitter just so I could get to the game. And I was just like, I was just arguing with myself, thinking, well, if I don't go, I'm going to miss 2 goals of the season, blah 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 blah. And then if I do go, it's probably going to be, we could lose 3-0, blah, blah. Anyway, so I'm glad I went. But then I was there, and I realised that the guy sitting in front of me, season ticket holders, Peter is his name, and his family, and they come all the way from Cambridge for every single game, and we just got talking, and he said, I think your voice sounds familiar, and I said, and so finally he's realised I do the podcast anyway, so I said I'd give a shout out to Peter. He listens to us on his bike on the way to work every Tuesday, so hello Peter. And on the other side of me is the Marquez family, who come all the way from Oxford.
So we got
a
boat race in the middle.
Exactly. I'm in the middle of a boat race, so I'd say
not an attractive boat race.
Yeah, I've got the most unattractive boat race of the lot of us. So that was that. The second one is a competition stroke raffle we're doing, which I'm pleased to announce. Yeah. Now, as most of you know, Stan Bowles sadly been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and recently the club auctioned off a load of match-worn T-shirts and raised a lot of money for his treatment, and also for the Alzheimer's Society. It was a great effort, and very much to be applauded, but some fans said they couldn't afford to fork out a few £100. So this is sort of more of a raffle. You pay a £5 and you can win any one of these prizes. First up's a QPR replica shirt signed by Warnock and the whole of the first team squad, with the exception of Luongo, Hoylett, Sandro and Angela. So big thanks to Ian Taylor at the club for sorting that. We've also got a framed photograph of Stan Bowles signed by the man himself, a signed copy of award-winning book This Boy by Labour MP and QPR fan Alan Johnson, 2 copies of FIFA 16 on the format of your choice, and last but by no means least, I put my teeth in, a guest spot on this very podcast. The money raised will be split between Stan's ongoing care and the Alzheimer's Society. And the URL where you can find all this is www.west12media.co.uk/Stan, and the 12 is written as in 1 2. I'm sure it will also be with the help of Clive and all the other people on the fan sites, and we'll be giving it a plug in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll get prizes in time for Christmas. So there you go. That's it. Thanks very much for joining us, guys, and thanks very much for bailing us out.
Thank you.
And I've been Chris Charles. We've been the QPR podcast, and hopefully we'll have the F team back next week.
The QPR podcast is a West 12 Media and Burble Media production. The QPR podcast is sponsored by Northwood Fresh Fruit, Flowers and Plants. Based outside Northwood train station, they'll supply everything you need in the way of fruit, flowers and plants daily. And if you're passing them at Northwood train station, pop in and say hello, because Kev, who runs it's a QPR fan. Tell him the QPR podcast sent you.
QPR, QPR, Christmas Rangers.